A staggering number of people are now out of work in the United States as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. In the past half hour, the government's revealed another 5.2 million have lost their jobs in a week. That takes the total to at least 22 million in less than a month. And with many states expected to extend orders to stay at home, hourly workers are really worried about how they're going to pay their bills. Natasha Ghoneim reports from Chicago.
If there was ever a boom time in this Chicago neighborhood, no one living here now remembers it. The COVID-19 pandemic has shattered the already precarious lives of the many hourly workers in West Humboldt Park.
I'm scared. Scared more of a sense where, like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what my next move is going to be.
Less than 2 weeks ago, Jose Mantilla was operating a forklift and trying to save for an emergency. Now, a global coronavirus emergency has arrived, and like millions of people, he's been furloughed indefinitely. Mantilla joined hundreds of Chicagoans waiting outside for several hours to get a week's worth of donated groceries. Those in line told me the money saved on food must be used to pay for rent and medicine. Mantilla says he can survive without electricity or gas. He's worried about getting evicted from his apartment and becoming homeless.
I got to take it day by day, because if I don't, then I'm going to lose my mind.
Okay, please keep a safe distance, folks, okay?
A group of nuns and a priest, the size of a football team, run the Mission of Our Lady of Angels food pantry, where the need has more than tripled the last few weeks. Church services are canceled, unable to offer a smile or a pat on the back to people seeking solace in crisis. They're trying to minister via phone and email.
This is a time that the Lord has provided for us to all reevaluate the most important things in our lives, and to remember how grateful we should be for our lives, for the gifts that God has given us, our lives, our families, our friends.
The Greater Chicago Food Depository distributes food to a network of 700 pantries and programs in the Chicago area. Spokesman Greg Trotter says the pandemic is an unprecedented challenge. A third of their programs aren't operating. Grocery store donations have decreased, and fewer volunteers are showing up. Yet the demand is soaring.
We're very concerned that the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to be for our most vulnerable neighbors.
Back in West Humboldt Park, several Chicago Police Department SUVs arrive. With a drop in crime citywide, the officers loaded boxes of non-perishable food into their vehicles to deliver to the elderly and disabled. It's yet another way the community is responding to the coronavirus pandemic to ensure those overburdened by economic struggles are not forgotten. Natasha Ghoneim, Al Jazeera, Chicago.
Well, Stan VEUGER is a resident scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, and he's joining us from Washington, D.C. by Skype. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. Donald Trump has been determined that the economy is going to open as soon as possible, but with so many people out of work in the United States, to an outsider, that seems almost an impossible hope.
Well, yeah, I think we're definitely not ready for the economy to reopen. Because obviously, you know, the president can say that he would like to reopen the economy, and even governors and mayors can tell people that we're ready to reopen the economy. But that's not actually going to work as long as people are worried that the public health threat is not under control. And people are not going to go back to restaurants, to bars, to sports stadiums unless the spread of the disease is under control and widespread testing or some sort of treatment is available. And so I think both the president and other people who support this view that we can just reopen tomorrow if we'd like to are way too optimistic.
What are the sections of business that are going to be fastest to recover, and what are the ones that are going to be slowest?
Well, I think the sectors that are going to be slowest are the ones that rely on reasonably large groups of people in confined spaces together, right? So it includes some of the sectors I just mentioned, but also things like aviation, the hotel industry, industries like that. I think the sectors that will recover the fastest include sectors that have basically continued to function as they normally do, and so that includes, you know, your grocery stores, a lot of tech firms, all, you know, other services that do not rely on in-person contact. And then, in addition, of course, there are parts of the agriculture and manufacturing sectors that have basically continued as they normally do. The big risk is that there will be a big drop in demand even when we try to reopen, because we have such high levels of unemployment and because there is a risk that a lot of businesses will go into bankruptcy. And so if that happens, then suddenly every industry will be affected very negatively. And so I think that's where policymakers should try to make a difference.
You mentioned the airline industry and the tourism industry, the hotel industry, as being amongst those slowest to recover. And yet those, of course, are the industries that Donald Trump is specifically keen on trying to bail out. How is that going to affect the American economy going forward?
Well, we've seen in the small business support program, the payroll protection program, we've seen that the program is in principle restricted to businesses with under 500 employees, but it is extended precisely in some of those industries to businesses that have fewer than 500 employees per establishment. And so I think we're perhaps seeing some of that influence there. I mean, I think otherwise, I think the president will be very focused on making sure that the industries in which he has a personal financial interest receive as much support as possible from the federal government. I don't think this administration is married to very tight ethical rules, and so I think to that extent, I think it's good news for those industries.
Stan VEUGER, thank you very much indeed for your time.